one quick one on documents that went to student loans. Understanding that you can't tell us why the FBI search at the Biden Center wasn't disclosed previously, and that Ian Sams has referred questions about the National Archives possibly being blocked from sending a press release to DOJ. Understanding you can't talk about any of that. Can you assure us that the White House has been and continues to be as transparent as possible, meaning that where there haven't been disclosures, something has prevented that?
What I can say is what the President has said many times, and you've seen it in our statements, is that we are cooperating fully. The President and his team is cooperating fully, and we will continue to do that. And I'll just leave it there.
On student loans, does the White House believe that the President or administration can continue to use emergency powers after the emergency is over?
So providing debt relief or pausing loan payments as it relates to the student loans does not require an ongoing and national emergency. I just laid out for Karen how we see this process, and talking about the HEROES Act, which was a authority that was given to the Secretary of Education through Congress, and that's how we're moving forward there. And look, the emergency ending doesn't change the legal justification, and here's a couple of things here. There was a national emergency, as we all know, as we've all lived through it. Millions of borrowers were negatively impacted by the pandemic and face risk of default on their loans due to that emergency, that national emergency. Congress gave, again, the Secretary of Education the authority to take steps to prevent that harm, and he is, and that's how we see the process moving forward.
With the HEROES Act, it's the portion of the HEROES Act that the Secretary is using is the part that needs a national emergency to be able to cancel that debt. So I understand what you're saying, and it was sort of explained in the background call a few weeks ago on this, where an official said that the increased authority under national emergency is necessary for the program to be created, but doesn't have to be in effect through the duration of the program. And the reason I'm asking is that interpretation could potentially allow for, policy effectuation beyond the emergency. So at what point is someone not worse off after a pandemic? How are we determining?
I mean, just getting back to, I guess the crust of your question is that we don't need an emergency power to use the HEROES Act. It is an authority that was given to the Secretary of Education, and he is using that authority for a moment that we believe the American people really need it. After these last 3 years, after dealing with what many dealt with a national emergency that was to them, right? Something that was caused them harm, and so this is a way to help tens of millions of Americans who need a little extra help, and so that's what the Secretary of Education is doing.
Does the HEROES Act, though, require the national emergency for the Secretary to use it? I know we're splitting hairs here, but what I'm getting at is, yes, there was a national emergency. Yes, the administration used the HEROES Act because of the national emergency to cancel student debt. And I understand that the position that the administration staked out in the DOJ brief is that it doesn't have to be in effect to do the program. But my question I'm getting at is, when do you stop being harmed by the pandemic? How are we measuring it? And
that's a good question. Look, it's not any emergency power. It is, again, something that the Secretary of Education gets to. The HEROES Act is something that is in his purview, that he's able to use, an authority that he's able to use, and that's a decision that the Secretary of Education is going to make. As you remember, the debt relief was being used at the same time that we were going to lift up the pause, right, for payments, and so we believe as that was going to happen, we needed to do something to help tens of millions of Americans out there. Again, this is an authority that the Secretary of Education has. It's not just any kind of emergency power. This is a power that was given to the Secretary of Education by Congress that he's using in a way to make sure that Americans out there who have been harmed get a little bit of extra relief.
Final point on it.
I gotta move on. I gotta move on. I really gotta move on. Way in the back.